So today I wanted to make a video and talk about a new project that I'm starting. I'm getting ready to work on an EP with a country artist named Anderson Elswick that I have been a huge fan of for a long time. I first found out about Anderson almost a year ago. It was this time last year when I started noticing him liking posts on my studio's Instagram page. And I thought, well, who is this guy, Anderson Elswick? And so after 4 or 5 consecutive likes, I decided to go to his Instagram page and start to check him out. And so I spent about an hour one night just doing a deep dive on this guy's Instagram and watching videos of him playing his acoustic guitar and singing, and I became a fan. And so I did something that I don't normally do. I reached out and I cold called an artist and basically said, hey, I'm a huge fan of your stuff, and I am a record producer and I own my own studio. I'm a few hours away from you in Jellicoe, Tennessee, and I think you need to let me make your record because I'm a huge fan. And I don't think anybody's gonna make as good of a record for you as I will, because I'm such a fan and because I care so much about what the end product sounds like. I mean, I really was, God's honest truth, smitten by the music that I was hearing. I loved it. I just loved how raw it was. I loved the stories that he told, and I wanted him to be my next client. The only problem is that Anderson was in the Marine Corps and was, at the time that I reached out to him, about to ship out on a 6-month deployment. But we didn't let that stop us, and in fact, we plotted and planned and schemed and thought of ideas the entire time that he was on his deployment, checking in and talking with each other, sometimes as often as daily, and then sometimes we would, not get to communicate for, 2 or 3 weeks, until finally Anderson got to come by the studio about a month ago and sit in on a guitar tracking session, and that's when we began to plan starting his record. And so that day finally came last Friday, and I began to talk to Anderson about what would it look like for us to not only start working on your record, but at the same time, we will film videos documenting the entire process, show people what it's like to make your record, get to be a part of the actual creative process and the journey of one of these songs from the record taking shape, but then they can also learn about how I make records via my YouTube channel. And he was all about the idea. He thought that it was a really cool way to not only begin the project, but also kind of immortalize the project by putting something evergreen out on YouTube and in that space. And so this is the first video in what will probably be a 10 or so part series about making one of the tracks on Anderson Elswick's EP. So this is where we started the record at. This is the live room at my studio. I built it in an old church. This room is 30 feet wide by 50 feet long and has 24-foot high ceilings. And we began the record by recording the scratch tracks for all of the songs. Now, technically, I guess you could say that we really began the record when Anderson and I chose the songs. He's been sending me demos that he's been recording on his iPhone for weeks, but I think for the purpose of this video, I'm going to say that we started the recording process here because we are making this record in the studio, and we actually recorded stuff that we are going to use to work on the songs for the record for the entire process of the record making. So to begin, we started by cutting scratch tracks for every song. Now, one of the things that I want to do when I'm cutting scratch tracks is I want to get the best sounding scratch tracks I possibly can, because personally it annoys me to have something that just sounds terrible, that doesn't even sound like it belongs on the record for the entire process of recording. I don't want to have to sit and listen to a direct recorded guitar off of a cheap acoustic guitar pickup for the entire time that I'm tracking the drums and tracking bass and tracking vocals. I don't want to listen to a vocal that was recorded poorly on an SM58 and not sung very well in the control room and the click track is bleeding into it. I want to record it the best that I possibly can. And so we came to this room and we used this setup. We have 3 gobos, one behind me and one on each side, that are filled with 4 inches of R80 rock stool and then 2 layers of drywall and then a layer of 5/8 plywood. They're 4 foot by 8 foot. They're very tall, they're very heavy, and they are made to roll around so that we can kind of set up a makeshift booth in this room wherever we want to. And so that's what I did to help to minimize some of the room ambience from bleeding onto the tracks that we recorded. Then I used these 2 microphones. This is a Neumann U87 and this is an AKG 414, and on the recommendation of my friend Matt Goldman, put them into figure 8 pattern. What that allows us to do is point the U87 directly at the singer's mouth and point the null of the microphone directly at the guitar and minimize the bleed that we get in the vocal microphone of the acoustic guitar. And then we did the same thing but inversely with the 414, where I'm using the null of the microphone to point directly at the singer's mouth but angling it downward so that I'm getting the acoustic guitar. And so now what we will do is head back into Pro Tools and I'll let you hear what these 2 tracks sounded like with Anderson singing and playing, and so that you can also hear the amount of bleed or lack thereof in each microphone. All right, so check it out. Here we've got Pro Tools pulled up. Here is Anderson's song Broken Man, just as he played it going into the microphones.
Everything that I once has been stripped away, and I know I'm to blame, no matter what they say.
All right, so the purpose of this demonstration is to show you how the microphones sounded with the nulls of one another pointed at the opposite sources that they were supposed to be picking up. So here's the U87, and we can listen to it and see how much bleed from the guitar got into the vocal microphone.
Everything that I once has been stripped away, and I know I'm to blame.
And here's the acoustic guitar.
Everything that I once has been stripped away, and I know.
And here's both of them together.
Everything that I once has been stripped away, and I know.
Now, normally, even when I'm tracking scratch tracks, I'll still use a compressor, and one of the compressors in the outboard rack that I like to use is this purple MC77, and so I just thought, I've got the Plug-in Alliance version now, thanks to their new bundle, which is pretty cool. So I decided to just try to use that just to play around with it, see how I felt it fared against what I usually do, which is use the real purple. And then time adjuster, I'm just turning this on to try to make sure that the acoustic is as in phase with the vocal microphone as it can be. And I made that inactive like a goon because I'm trying to talk and narrate this thing. And so here's what it sounds like all in. This is actually what it sounded like for Anderson while he was tracking, because I went ahead and set all this up. These plugins are both HDX plugins, and so they're able to run without any latency or anything like that, and added the reverb. And so here's what it sounded like for Anderson while he was tracking.
And I know I'm to blame, no matter what they say. I'll do my best to carry on. Who knows if I can.
So there we go. We've got really good sounding scratch tracks, and one of the benefits of having so little bleed in each of these is that now they're highly manipulatable. If we want to pitch these songs up, change the key of one, see what it sounds like, we can do that fairly easily. If we need to record a different acoustic guitar later on, and we don't want the bleed from the scratch acoustic guitar to really affect what we're hearing in the mix while we're tracking other guitars, we can do that. We can get rid of it, and because there's so little bleed in the scratch vocal track from the acoustic guitar, any other acoustic instruments that we add on are not going to really negatively affect us during the tracking process. And so we went through and did this for all 7 of the songs We're actually only going to put 6 on the record, but we tracked 7. One is kind of an alternate that we're toying around with. We want to see in kind of the pre-production stages where things get fleshed out. And so we did this for all 7 of those songs, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So the next part of the journey is we're going to start going through some pre-production ideas with the guitar player, and then we're actually also going to the drummer that I am using for this record is my studio partner that I share this space with here at Gem City Studios, Matt Goldman, who's a fantastic producer, fantastic engineer, and also a darn fantastic drummer. And so that'll be really fun. In one of the future episodes, we'll get to see some of Goldman's thoughts on the drums for this record, and then also get to see him play a little bit too. So thanks for watching. I've been Matt. This is Capsule to Cone, and look forward to seeing you guys next time.